Natalie, I saw that interview given on the steps of the courtroom there. What's the latest on the story?
Well, of course, this comes after around 24 women were allowed to give their testimonies to court, alleging the abuse that they received at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein, of course, Jeffrey Epstein being a long-term friend of Prince Andrew. Now, this particular lady said that when she was 17, she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew, and that took place on a number of occasions. Now, of course, this dates back to 2011, in fact, where she had said about Prince Andrew that he knew the truth about Jeffrey Epstein, the controversial financier who was jailed on sexual abuse charges and then accused of sex trafficking as well before he committed suicide in prison earlier on in August. Also in 2014, there were court filings by Virginia Giuffre where she accused Prince Andrew of these sexual acts against her, but they were thrown out of court in 2015 for being immaterial and impertinent to the case against Epstein. So these are accusations that have been bounded around for quite a few years now. Prince Andrew, of course, has long denied these accusations against him, and in fact this weekend released a statement in which he said that he had no awareness of any of the things that Jeffrey Epstein had been accused of. He had not witnessed any of these during their time as friends. We know that the two knew each other since 1999, that they'd seen each other a couple of times a year, that Prince Andrew would often fly on Epstein's private jet, for example. One thing that Prince Andrew did admit in this statement, though, is that after Epstein was released from prison in 2010, he actually went to visit him, and he did say that that was something he shouldn't have done.
Yeah, you're talking about this issue around, I mean, he had all of these convictions around sex trafficking. There were still so many questions at the time about whether it was a good idea for Prince Andrew to be seen with a man who was convicted of child sex abuse. Has he responded in any way to that? We know that the palace itself is supporting Prince Andrew.
Well, absolutely. On that, Prince Andrew had said that in terms of what he had witnessed, what he had seen, he had not witnessed any of these things that Jeffrey Epstein had been accused of. But of course, the big question then is, when Jeffrey Epstein was convicted in 2008 of sexual abuse crimes, after that, after he was released from prison, Prince Andrew did actually go to see him. And that is something that Prince Andrew said was a mistake, that given the accusations against him, given that he had gone to prison on those accusations, that he should not have done that and potentially should have presumably ended the friendship and not have seen him.
Natalie, before we let you go, since we have you on the line, talk to us about this decision to halt, or rather, let me just get my facts straight on this. Parliament being halted for a time, and it's being bandied about that it's effectively to halt Corbyn's plot to block this no-deal Brexit, effectively to force through a no-deal Brexit.
Yeah, quite a controversial move by Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He is going to suspend Parliament, a process known as prorogation, between the 9th and 14th of September in order to bring about a new session of Parliament, which is called a Queen's Speech here in the UK, which sets out the new government's legislation for the future. Now, Johnson's critics suggest that he's doing this to try to reduce the time that parliamentarians have got to debate either a Brexit deal or indeed a no-deal Brexit, and of course to try and avoid a no-deal Brexit altogether. We know there isn't the appetite in Parliament for a no-deal Brexit, which is the default position come the 31st of October. Now, Johnson himself, however, has said that's simply not the case, that the current parliamentary session has been running for over 340 days. That's far too long. He has come in as a new Prime Minister with a new government, and therefore they need to set out their legislative programme as any new government would do. And in fact, he has been called on setting about a Queen's speech previously, of course. But the big question here is what this does. This does actually reduce by about a week the time that Parliament has to debate many of these issues. And of course, the timescale on this is very tight as it is, with that 31st of October deadline looming. In addition to that, of course, we've got Parliament in recess for the party conferences sessions as well. So all of this is really eating into time that parliamentarians have to debate or even try to stop a no-deal Brexit. So a very controversial measure. Lots of people, lots of politicians coming out and criticising the Prime Minister for doing this. But of course his supporters suggesting, well, of course he needs to do this in order to push forward on his legislative programme.
All right, well, thanks very much for that. My colleague Natalie Powell, live to us there from London.